So over the past 2 days of the Warriors Den video being released, I've had a plethora of comments talking about the stamina changes of all things. Now some people were praising Ubisoft for a good job well done, while the other side was talking like Ubisoft personally slapped them in the face and shit down their throat. For the time, I thought removing the stamina damage from all heroes was a good idea without really thinking about the repercussions of what I was truly reading. Now I gotta say this video is not gonna be edited as much as possible because the way I need to write this does not really allow me to make my normal jokes, but I'll try where I can. Obviously, when you dangle something in the face of a moron like me that looks like it removes a layer of annoyance from certain heroes, it's really easy to overlook how this in turn would be removing a layer of For Honor's combat system from what I think is the worst. Today's video is going to be taking a wider look at this change, to talk about its positive impacts but also its negative impacts, and I definitely feel like the negative impacts are greater only because the lack of balance that truly went into this change. Before I begin, I have 3 things to state. 1. I know YouTubers are already covering this, so I'll try to make it unique to myself. 2. While yes, I believe now that this change is for the worst, we won't see improvements if we sit here and get super toxic to the devs. They aren't going to be in any hurry to fix anything if we aren't giving them actual useful feedback. So I encourage you, if you want to, give useful feedback on Reddit or wherever you can, and try to stay as unbiased as possible in your constructive feedback. And lastly, if you're liking what you're watching and you keep coming back, why not sub? It seems like there's a strict pattern where if I ask and don't ask, the number of subs drastically is different, and I hate really doing it, but so is life. I'm going to start with the good that came with the out of stamina changes, or at least the potential good that the devs were trying to do. Now I want to say that these are not my opinions, but the opinions of a collective that I can respect. The amount of time you're out of stamina truly depends on what hero you are truly up against, which can kind of suck at times if it's a zone spamming BP, or even just that one Warden player who always does a bash after any heavy parry. I feel like you're just being overly punished for something you shouldn't be punished for. For example, Warden. I have played a majority of this hero just doing the double lights on Warden's heavy parry, but the max punish quote unquote is a bash to tag on stamina pause and stamina damage. This prolongs the fight where you as a player feel like control is being ripped out of you for too long, and personally I felt that the game was never that serious to have consistently tagged my opponent's revenge every time I parry one of their heavies. Now on the other side of that, I realize if my opponent is really low on stamina after a parry, I would, because it's just common knowledge that it's easier to attack your opponent if he can't fight back. Being out of stamina greatly lessens your choices of counterattacking, let alone making them all riskier. The stamina system before was even more punishing than this, and nobody really liked it because it was too punishing on the player, especially putting your opponent out of stamina being 10 times easier. Now it feels like the only person who could put you out of stamina is yourself. It follows the same philosophy as revenge. If you just look at the bar and avoid the consequences of it depleting or filling, then it's no threat to you. You can push yourself as far as you can go, and there's nothing your opponent can do to punish you for any of it. So to take the good and go from long story to short, the overall main focus I believe of removing the stamina damage from the game wasn't to remove a layer of the game's mechanics, but to remove a level of frustration that came from characters like Warden, Warmonger, and Black Prior, who vastly make fights prolonged because of the stamina pause and stamina drain. Where I think they went wrong is in some areas. First of all, stamina drain was never that much of an issue. The issue that aligned itself was stamina pause. Getting hit by a bash, then the punish, and your opponent's normally having frame advantage after all of this, and your stamina still has not started regenerating. This is the root of the problem. Not the fact that the moves took it away from you. The problem was that they took it away from you and then denied you from regaining it, so that every time someone bashed you, they would most likely have more stamina than you were, and there's nothing you could have done about it. If they truly wanted to make it harder and less annoying, reduce the amount of stamina pause on bashes that apply, or just not outright have them as a mechanic as a whole. Before, again, I start this topic for the bad, it comes with just a reminder that these are also collective thoughts of my own and other people's added into it. For anyone that isn't truly convinced about this being a decently bad change with good intentions behind it, let me explain the bad it's done for the game at the moment. We talked about some of it, but did not go into detail for any of it. The first issue that arose is moves getting shadow nerfed or full on turned useless with this new update. If you watched my video, or literally anyone's other For Honor videos this week, you've seen that people talk about certain moves becoming literally useless, and that's not exaggerating. And yes, it is true, but they didn't really talk about the moves that weren't useless, but were also heavily nerfed because of this. Obviously, the first and biggest heroes were Centurion and Gladiator, where this new change, Gladiator's parry riposte, is literally worthless. If you want to play devil's advocate, you could say it's useful for ledging or deflecting your opponent, but the main use of it was the ability to push your opponent's stamina to a point of breaking, swaying the fight in your favor. After a successful defensive read, going from trade confirmed damage with no stamina or full stamina damage with no physical damage was a pretty healthy mechanic, if I should say so myself. But no damage or damage? Gee, I wonder what option people are going to pick. Centurion's Triple Punch was only used to punish an overconfident opponent who made a wrong read while decently low on stamina, and the trade-off was your own stamina, but also normally a guard break punish. In fours, this also left you easily peeled by enemies to stop you from getting any real punish off of them. Now, it is a glorified Haymaker moment that does absolutely nothing other than confirming 15 damage on a max punish guard break wall splat. And that's only in Dominion. If you're playing Duel's Ascent, it's literally a waste of time to do the punches into the wall splat and overall more stamina out of your pocket from theirs. Those two were the moves that were extremely effective, but there's even more moves that are now in a very bad state that doesn't seem like the right option to use ever. Blackbriar's Zone, while it was really annoying, it costed a whopping 40 stamina to use. That's about 1/3 of someone's stamina bar. Now, the damage existed because it was such a costly zone attack. Now, when I get zoned by a Blackbriar in this patch, and it pushes their stamina bar to the point of breaking, it doesn't ever really benefit them and only benefits me. I think this is the main issue, was the lack of overall balance that came with this change. There's so many moves that exist to enhance a hero with stamina damage but cost more than a regular punish. And without the extra punish, it leaves the player base in the question of, why would I ever use more resources when there is a cheaper option that does the exact same thing? Imagine yourself going to a grocery store and you saw 2 boxes of burgers in a freezer. The same exact calories, patties, literal copy paste 1-to-1, except one was more expensive. Why would you buy it? Hitting the delete button on a whole layer of the game for every single hero was definitely not the right play and should have 100% been a testing grounds for us, the players, to figure out. Instead of the assassin change coming to the TG, which should have been an obvious 90% of the community not liking it, why not test the removal of half of the game's damaging mechanic and see what player feedback you could have gotten? This, in my opinion, is the whole use of the testing grounds. You take community ideas, especially stamina damage, something that was talked about a lot in the community over years and years and years. This is what your testing grounds are made for, to test things that you fully don't know and fully the players not knowing, to see what outcome you can reach together. I think honestly I'm a great example of this theory working in test, because I thought for sure that stamina damage being removed from the game would not be that much of an issue, but still, just because I'm right sometimes doesn't mean I'm right all the time, and that's why we need to test things. As I said, I think the stamina thing was a step in the right direction, and I still think right on that. But it is a 1 step forward, 2 step back situation here, where yes, you had exceptions like JJ and Throws, but there should have been a plethora of heroes on this list of exceptions. I feel like instead of just removing it as a whole, they could have done it a lot differently. Instead of just removing all stamina damage, you could have decreased stamina pause on all bashes, and it would have been fine. The problem is I thought that if you just remove stamina pause, it would be better, but stamina pause is probably a necessary requirement if you're gonna attack someone's stamina, because if you bash someone, they lose it, they're just gonna regen it immediately. At the moment, I think stamina pause is just too long for its own good. Making players wait to play the game again is not a fun way to play a video game. So just decreasing the time it took from pause to unpaused would do wonders. I think everyone at the moment can agree that the game feels insanely safe now that there's practically nothing your opponent can do when you overextend, which makes the whole stamina management learning curve obsolete. It had multiple factors, like I said. Is your opponent playing someone capable of punishing your stamina? Can you prevent it in any way? And potentially, is there a dangerous area where if you run out of stamina, you can lose the fight immediately? Now the learning curve looks like this. Make sure green bar don't go gray. Some people are going to look at this and go, well, why are you opposed to making things easier for people to understand? And my response is that when you truly learn a game's complex or simple mechanics, which I think the stamina management was a very simple mechanic to grasp already, it feels gratifying knowing that you won because you played smarter than your opponent with these things in mind. If this was a mechanic of the majority of the community the player base could not fathom, then it would make sense. But again, as I said, unless you are brand new to the game and you don't know how stamina management works, even then, the game still has the option to turn on something telling you that the stamina management that will actively pop up if you drop below 50%. Not only that, but feats also got affected. Tireless is now semi-useless because again, if you don't put yourself out of stamina, you're not going to use it, and again, there's nothing your opponent can do to put you out of stamina. A feat really shouldn't make you have to use it, instead have your opponent force you to use it. Ki actually, you could say, got a little shadow buff, but if you're running Ki, you must be a kid who shoved the square block into the circle hole. If you choose that to run over Bounty Hunter, then I have no words. Let me know what you think about the stamina changes, because as I said, when I started out with this topic, I was blind from the initial cons and only looked at the pros. Even if the pros were BP isn't as annoying to fight anymore. The faults of the few should never impact the lives of the many. But remember, if you want something to change, be positive about it and do not attack people. Be the change you want to be. As always, I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a great day.